So today, lads, we're going to talk a little bit about the WNBA CBA talks, and it sounds like things are moving well. Kathy Engelbert, I've never been a betting one in my life. I have to start. I'm not going to start now. But we have to get a deal by Monday. We all know that. But in this article from Annie Costable, if you want to read the full article, go for it. I am reacting to very much a sentence in the article from here. This is from Annie Costable, obviously, I think it's like, I'm pretty sure it's her. I still need to learn the name of the person who's with the 9. Her, Doug, I don't know what Doug's surname is. Alexa, someone with the 9. The 9 Sports are there, and Venom's been camped outside the hotel for all these days. I saw a thing being like, there's only 4 people. There's been 4 people here the whole time. It's like, Venom's been there too. Venom's been there too. And people are like, oh, anybody's like, oh yeah, he's not a credentialed journalist. That doesn't matter. He's been there. They've all just been sitting outside waiting for the same things. He's been there too. But he has them so shook that they're closing the blinds on him. But at the end of the day, this is big. It says here, the league's latest proposal offered a share of net revenue that for the first time amounts to more than 15% of gross revenue. So that being said, it's probably 80% net, which is a big thing. Like 80% net, I don't understand why people people don't realize again that this 80% net, the bigger net percentage you have, if you're a league, it becomes a bet on yourself. So let's just say 80% net. 80% net based on their numbers equals 16% gross. Is the equivalent of 16% gross. So we're going to go with Paint Online. So we're going to reverse the math. So this is literally where they're coming from, the gross and net percentage. Everyone is working off the assumption that the league profits 20%. So if the league profits 20%, 20% profit by 0.7, which is 70, equals 14%, which is under the 15%. If it's by 80%, the 80% net, then it ends up going up to 16%. But let's just say hypothetically, the league are able to run this so that the league makes 10% extra money. So that makes 10% extra money revenue. So that it turns out that it's the league makes a 30% profit. So then as far as gross revenue is concerned, it becomes 0.3 by 0.8. If it's 80%, equals 0.24. So it ends up being a 24%. If they can make 30%, if they can increase their profit by 10%, then it ends at the net revenue mark, or the gross revenue equivalent goes up to 24%. If they're able to make it let's just say in 3 to 4 years' time, if they're somehow able to double their TV, revenue, so their profit goes up to, instead of 20%, let's just say they're able to double TV revenue and all things, it goes to 40%. So then 0.4 profit by 0.8 equals, am I right in saying that ends up being 32? Ends up being 32. They go to 32%. So in this current deal, by the sounds of things, they're in around 80% net. For the players, if you're the players, I'm taking this in a heartbeat. Why? Because let's just say the best they can probably get in terms of gross revenue, because of the risk involved for the league, is sub 15% if they go pure gross. However, an 80% net might be the equivalent of 16% gross today. But in 3 years' time, it might be the equivalent of 40% or 32% gross. It might be the equivalent of it could be the equivalent of 32% gross. And for people being like, oh, the league can just, fudge the numbers. Yeah, they're not going to do that. That is fraud. That is fraud. At the same time, I don't think people realize that the league has to make profit. And the reason why the league has to go make profit, more so than anything, is to pay off the other investors. There is no way they would allow that the other investors would allow the WNBA to fudge the numbers. They wouldn't. We're not going to be seeing anyone fudge the numbers. The other investors would not let that happen. Why? Because they need a profit. They need to get their money out again. people like the league are going to put in creative accounting so they can show they make a loss. There are 58% of people involved that don't benefit if they make a loss. And people are like, oh, it makes it's a lot, like the NBA owners want to show it as losses. No one wants to show losses. Nobody wants to show losses. Like, people are just like, oh, it helps them tax-wise. Like, well, yeah. But let's just say hypothetically, people don't understand how tax write-offs work. If you're putting money into other things to offset it, that are some certain things are tax deductible. But like, if you make a $1 or a €0 profit, you pay zero in taxes. You still make a zero in profit. If you make a million profit, you have to pay a lot in taxes, but you're still making a 600K profit. And the fact is that there are 58% of investors that are not going to sit there and lose money on their equity because the league doesn't want to pay the players a couple of million. That's not how this is going to work. Right now, we're at the stage where, in my opinion, we're very, very close. The players will be crazy to pass up on this number. It's a number that they would be crazy to pass up on. Like 80% gross rev. 80% gross rev is 80% net rev is a crazy number. Because the only way that 80% net rev is bad for the players is if the players don't believe the league is sustainable. And if you want to say, oh, but the league, they're going to hide the books. Like, somebody can see the books. Somebody can. They are not cooking the books. Like, I can say that confidently because some of those investors, some of those ownership can see the books. Heck, Sue Bird's involved in ownership. Renee Montgomery's involved in ownership. Do you think Renee Montgomery is going to be just sitting there happy if they're cooking the books as a former player who's a commentator in part of the UConn Mafia? Do you think she would do that? No. Like, at the end of the day, the odds of them cooking the books is very low. And if they did it, they would have been caught already. The WNBA players, if they accept, like, there is a net revenue number that absolutely, and the funniest thing about this is that if they accept the high net revenue number and it turns out the league is ultra profitable, what will then happen is the league will come back in 3 years' time and say, we will give you 30 gross. Like, if they are able, I think there has to be for the players, there has to be an opt-out with the new TV deal. But if not, I don't think people realize again, if I'm the players, accepting, like, rather than accepting a low ball gross revenue, as in a 20%, I'm accepting 80% net. Why? Because in 3 years' time, they can renegotiate a TV deal. The expectation is they're going to get double. And that 80% net becomes worth way more than 16% gross. Way more. Say than 20% gross. It becomes worth way more in 3 years' time. And if the league keeps growing the way players believe it is, come next CBA, there won't be a question. Heck, they might be able to get 40% gross. They actually, like, if the league starts becoming wildly profitable, they might be able to get 40% gross. But right now, there is too much of a risk on the owners. And for me, if the players actually believe that it's going to grow and continue to boom and that this isn't a bubble, the net revenue option will give them more money in the short term and will give them more leverage in the long term, especially over a strike.